Okay, guys, we're gonna do a little hot take on a transmission service on the Sprinter. This is a 2016 passenger version with the 2.1 liter and the 7-speed NAG 2 transmission. So we're gonna go through it. This is the second service I did on it. The first one, what happened is as I drained it, I realized it had red fluid in it, which is not the appropriate fluid for this transmission. It's the later blue fluid that you want. And like this is the stuff I'm using here. You can see it, Titan ATF 7134FE. So that's the stuff. And so, you know, all I had was the blue fluid that I ordered to do the service. So I put the blue fluid in with the red that was still in the transmission. So I have purple fluid right now. Not great, terrible situation, but let's go through what I did so far. One of the things you're gonna need to do is actually turn the engine over to the appropriate position, which I got from underneath here. It's hard to see, but you can actually fish through this bottom area and put a socket. I think it was a 32 millimeter. Let's look here. Yeah, 32 millimeter socket with, I use this adapter to go to a 3/8 inch and a 3/8 inch socket, and I was able to, it kind of spaces it out between the shroud and everything to where the handle comes straight down, and then I just use a little cheater bar slipped over the end of the ratchet, and I was able to just turn the engine over to line up the torque converter bolt, which I'm going to show you now to drain the torque converter. So let's get under here. Okay, so what we got here, I've already pulled the drain plug on the pan, and then down in that hole right in there where you can see an open round hole, that's where the torque converter nut, little fill plug, the drain plug, will show up. As you turn the engine over by hand, you'll just look for it down in there and from the bottom, and you'll see it. And when it lines up, then you can get an Allen wrench or a socket. A socket with a wobbly adapter works the best. But so I got that so far. I'm draining a bunch of fluid. Next step I did was unhook this line from the, you can see I got a tube attached to it right now, but that bolts to the side of the transmission right there. And when I pop that hose out, it's actually a line for the cooler, transmission fluid cooler that's in the front of the motor. So that, I'm not sure if it's the intake or the output hose, but essentially that, when I popped that, the torque converter instantly started to drain a lot more. The first time I did that, it only drained a little dribble, maybe a quarter of a cup, and that's it. When I popped that line, it drained at least a quart, maybe more, maybe almost 2 quarts. So that's kind of important. Now what I'm going to do is maybe pop this line off this side of the motor. See the hard line right here? So that hard line. So I'm going to get that off. And what my plan is to use compressed air and a very low PSI and just blow air through this line, essentially evacuating the cooler of any fluid. Then I'll have, hopefully it comes out this side and down into my drain pan. And then I might hook up a hose to this and fill the cooler manually with new fluid before I bolt it all up, and that should then have fluid in it. I don't know if that's necessary. Like, it will, once the temperature comes up on the transmission, that valve will open to have fluid go through the cooler, but right now I'm just gonna do it manually and go from there. Alright, so I got the valve body and conductor plate assembly out. key thing is this piece right here. So there's a pin that comes from the shift linkage that slots into this little groove right here, and that doesn't want to come out. So it's hung up on this corner. Many people are worried about this side that has the O-rings that actually goes to the outside of the transmission housing, and that can be pried down. You can use, I used a plastic little pry bar, this thing. It was a handmade thing made by a buddy of mine, but it's a piece of plastic essentially. And between the housing of the transmission and the top of this thing, I pried there, and I don't think that's a great place. Actually, the corner here of the very outside of the transmission, and then one of these two little ledges here, you can fit it between there and pry down, and it's a lot sturdier, and you could put a little more, like quite a bit more force to actually pop it out way easier than pushing down from the top. Anyways, that's my experience. But I had to be very careful with this because this is the most brittle part, I guess, of these transmissions, and that part will break if you're not careful. So getting it back in there is going to be a trick. I think feeding in this side first will be key to it, and making sure that that slots in to where it's supposed to go, or at least is lined up in a way where I can then move forward with the other side, and the whole thing kind of will go in there. Also, this piece, this big black, piece that sticks up right here, it wants to hang up on the cross members and everything in the way. So being very careful with that, moving it all the way forward toward the front of the van, and then getting the back out first, and then the front slips out. That was the way I was able to do it without breaking anything. So now on to taking these solenoids out and seeing if I can clean them out with a magnet. Okay, so I took all the valves out, the solenoids out. And the way I set them is, as I pulled them out, I laid them out in the orientation they were sitting in here. Same on this side. These ones I already cleaned. So as I'm doing this, those little contacts right in there, that's where the solenoid gets its power. Those I wipe down and make sure they're clean, because they did have gray metallic like a film on them. Same with the contacts right here on each solenoid. That's where those hit. And I'm taking, per one of the videos I watched, a magnet and running it around the screen to try and pick up any metal fragments. And then I make sure to lubricate the O-rings again with brand new fluid, and I'm just putting them back in. Hey guys, so we're on my way back to my friend's place. This is after I did this training service and everything. So obviously I got lucky. I didn't break anything. Everything still works. Everything still shifts through all the gears, which is, I feel like it's an accomplishment. But I'm heading back there now to check the level, because I did check the level one time after a quick drive after filling it. So I want to check it again and kind of set the proper level. It's kind of the last step. I'm also going to be doing the brakes out there, but everything seems to be working well. A couple things I want to kind of talk about during this thing. If you are going to evacuate the line, the input and output lines for the transmission cooler that are on the side of the transmission, you need to order 4 total O-rings, because there's 2 on each line. So just a little FYI there. Another thing is fluid in the mag too is definitely the blue fluid, so get the right fluid. Hopefully this helps some people, and yeah, take care.